Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, mes amis. Habs win their second game in a row. Come back and win it. And I'm going to start the show off because I'm on my own tonight. So I'm going to be relying much more heavily on the chat. So I need you guys to get the chat bumping for us. But I'm going to start the show with Frederick Ouellette, who says 10 power plays. I don't ever recall seeing a game like that. Might be because I'm 48 and losing it. No, I agree. That was wild. A lot of wasted opportunities on that one tonight. I think I've seen kind of like a mix of like, that was okay, with a bit of negativity on the game heading into like the game-winning goal in the last 15 seconds there, which I think is fair. I don't think this was the Canadiens' best effort. I think that the Blackhawks, I don't think they played bad. I think they played dumb. I think the penalties were really obvious and they actually got away with a few. Not that the Canadiens didn't as well. They always get away with some, and they got away with more than the Blackhawks did because the Blackhawks got called on a lot of stupid calls. And I don't think the Blackhawks necessarily played poorly. I think the Canadiens are too much for them. I think that the Canadiens didn't bring their best and they were still too much for them through 40 minutes. And then they kind of sat on their laurels in the third and finally woke up near the end there. And that shift by that top line, what I said was, while posting about it on Blue Sky during the game, was they felt inevitable. They woke up and they're like, oh, okay, we're so much better than this team. And the irony is that the Canadiens are younger than the Blackhawks. That's kind of wild. All right, what else we got here in the chat? Trinka says, can't wait till the home opener. Let's get these guys home. Yeah, I think the ovation specifically for Bolduc is going to be nuts. Having a local guy start like this, which ironically, first time since 2001 with Yannick Perreault, also a local guy, to have 3 goals in their first 3 career games for the Montreal Canadiens. It's really been impressive, and it's not just been the goals. Bolduc has been everywhere. He's been involved, and I actually haven't checked the stats on the game overall tonight, but I'm not really too concerned with the stats because I don't think the Canadiens played their best. They were just the better team anyway. I'm liking that Dach, Bolduc, Gallagher line a lot. How are you guys feeling about it? Because I'm kind of doing things differently tonight, in case you hadn't noticed. We're just going to kind of go back and forth in the chat. The game was kind of a snooze fest in a way, outside of the physical stuff I found. Despite all those power plays, it was just kind of like a frustrating game to watch. So I think it'd be better to just go back and forth with y'all. Slap backhand pass in the zone entry on the last goal. Yeah. Oh my God. Slav, his start to this season, my God, guys, this is the most I've seen Slav in like the first 2-3 months in a season string together good Slav games. I think every game this season has been a big boy Slav game. And those used to be super rare. And it was those moments where you're like, oh, okay, I see what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton and the scouting staff saw in Uri Slafkovsky. I see what they want him to be. That's in there, but can he bring it all the time? This is the most I think any of us have seen him bring it from the start of the season consistently. Like, not just game by game, shift to shift. He's been a friggin' monster. I don't know how you guys are feeling. Bullock, 82 goal season on the way. Yeah, they said on the broadcast, somebody said we need 80 from you this year. I guess he's saying bet so far. Trinket says, Galley playing on a line with 76 makes me giggle. Yeah, it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny. And Bolduc's the same size as PK, hey? Like, he's that 6 foot, 5'11", maybe for real, kind of stocky, like not necessarily hugely physical, but like will level guys a little bit bigger than him and surprise them consistently. Like, it's kind of eerie that he's a better shooter than PK though. Doesn't have to rely on the slap shot as much. Romelli says, how do you get less than 30 shots with 10 power plays? They got 25 shot attempts on 10 power plays, which, yeah, Only 12 on net, I think. Again, yeah, I don't think they played that well tonight. The power play doesn't look connected yet to me. I don't think it's bad. I think they're not in the flow. You know what I mean? Like they haven't found it yet with this new alignment. And that's what the beginning of the season's for. I think my approach to these first 3 games has been kind of, who are these Canadiens this year? How different are they from last year? Like, what effect is this big change on defense going to have? Of, you're losing Mark Savard, the veteran leader, shot blocker, PKer, but you're bringing in Noah Dobson, who is a legitimate first pairing defenseman on essentially every single team in the NHL. And he's been friggin' fantastic so far. He is very different than I think a lot of people expected him to be. And I thought early in preseason and even in the first game, he looked slow in his decision making. Like he wasn't quite sure where to be in the Canadiens system yet. And the last couple of games and the last half of the game against the Leafs, I think he's been arguably their best defenseman. Like he's just been everywhere. He's been physical, a defensive presence, and offensively, like he's still a little bit shot heavy from the point for me. I wish he would mix it up a bit more, but the Canadiens haven't necessarily given him the best options either. And him and Matheson have really been fantastic. And I want to talk about Matheson as well at some point. Let's look at the chat here. Let's see. Ian Boisvert, what's up, my friend? Ian's alive, says Trinka. Welcome. Romelli says, I've seen too many times where the CH had 3 players behind the goal line during the power play. How do you hope to score that way? Also, I hate seeing Caulfield at the goal line, spotting the PP, wasting his shot. Yeah, I think they'll start doing what they used to do with Suzuki and Caulfield, where they'll flip. But I actually like Caulfield down low because he's capable of putting in like those front of the net jam plays and just roofing it. And he surprises players. Now, goalies also expect it now. You see when he gets the puck in tight, they're like, oh, he's going roof. But he can adjust and start going like low blocker, and then finding little spots or start putting it 5-hole. He'll adjust, he'll find his spots. And he proved last year that he's more than just a trigger man on the power play. And this opens up like Suzuki's looks as well for playmaking. So I do think that's something that has worked in the past pretty well. But I would like to see Caulfield get set up for one-timers a little bit more. But maybe they just don't want to exploit that at this point in the season. Maybe they're long game planning. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but the amount they've put into this in such a short time has been really impressive. Like the leaps that players have taken. So I don't know. My respect for them is maybe too much at this point. Who knows? What was the other part? Yeah, the 3 players below the goal line. I wanted to say, I noticed Demidov a lot likes to stay almost in the corner. I don't know if it's to get like lost behind the shuffle or like just give himself more time and space. It's not that he's afraid to go to the middle or anything, because he just takes the puck there through 3 guys constantly. Like he'll take the puck from the corner and drive straight to the goalie. And he gets there. He hasn't necessarily got the shot off, but he dekes around guys like few I've ever seen. I've got Kovalev vibes a little bit in there, but much less selfish, I guess you would say. But I think that was a little bit always overemphasized with Kovalev. But I've been impressed with Demidov as well on the defensive side. His poise, like, is it ridiculous to say that there's been a big change in his defensive posture and poise between games 1 and game 3? Like it feels like he's taken a little bit of a step there, and that's impressive. And I hope it's consistent. Trinka says Caulfield's perfecting his Draisaitl angle. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few in the league who can do that kind of stuff, So it's one of those things where Caulfield may not get as many power play goals personally, but it might boost the power play overall because there's more looks available to put the puck in a good position. Frederick Roulette says the 2 strong power play isn't working well so far. Yeah, they're not clicking the way you would expect with the extra talent, but it is also early. And this is the time of year where, you got to figure it out. I think also some credit should go to the Chicago PK. The Canadiens should have worn them out over 10 power plays, you would think. The pace wasn't there. I think that's what we've seen when this power play isn't functioning well. It's a little bit ponderous. It's like they kind of move the puck a little bit too slow, and they're a little bit too slow to make the decision to take the shot. And they're just always a little bit away from getting a great look, right? The shots always go into sticks at the last second or into skates. That's what I see so far, is they're a little bit ponderous. Demidov had a great skate back in the second, I think, to save a goal. From Ramelli. I agree. That was absolutely incredible. And that was off of a really, really terrible pass from Patrik Laine, which is a bit of a consistent problem, I find. When he has the puck on the wall and he's under pressure, he likes to soft backhand pass to the corner, but it's always a little bit further from the corner than the defenseman is, and too slow, and it gets picked off a lot. Like Patrik Laine, unfortunately, part of the problem with his game is that he gives up a lot of odd man rushes in that way. Like, he's not the quickest puck handler. Like, he's very difficult to get off the puck, but he's also a little bit overconfident in his space. And when he gets driven into the boards, he loses that almost every time, which can be really frustrating, especially when he's not scoring. But I think it's hard to expect a lot more out of him at this point, because he's a guy who needs a few more puck touches, and he's just not getting them. Like, they're not available because he hasn't earned his 5-on-5 ice time over other players. And on the power play, well, is he a first wave guy? I don't know if he's one of the top guys on that power play, like in terms of a unit, is he the one that makes it the most functional? And neither wave has figured it out yet. So he's got to bring it. Frederick Roulette says, overall, it was such a bizarre game with so many power plays and PKs, and the lines were all, really curious to see what time on Kapanen had tonight. Not a lot. He had a rough game, but I can't blame him. A rough game by the stats from what I saw, but honestly, I think it's hard to fault somebody who doesn't get a regular shift in a game like that, like a very irregular shift, especially at 5-on-5. It's hard to build any rhythm. So can't really blame him for that. Denny says Veleno greater than Laine. I mean, maybe that's the thing with Patrik Laine, is when he's not able to be utilized as a scorer or as a shooter, then the detriments to his game become very obvious, and the trade-off becomes much less worth it. And the line that he's on at 5-on-5, I don't think he fits there. Like, he doesn't really play at the same pace as Evans and Anderson, and neither of those guys are exactly playmakers to get him the puck. So he's not necessarily the priority to get going on this team. He has to make himself the priority. That's what every player has to do in that position. Ian Bover, Madam President of Ghoulie Nation, how are you feeling? Oh, Kay is here. Welcome, Kay. Oh yeah, what a hit by Ghoulie, Frederick Roulette says. Yes, Ghoulie was a bit of a king tonight. That was absolutely incredible from him. The assist on the game winner too, keeping that in. He had a big game, because Ghoulie, I found, has not been at his best to start this season. And I think it's kind of the same as what I saw in Dobson early on. The decision-making is a little bit slow, a little bit less confident, but a little bit more of the usual Ghoulie was back tonight, and that's good to see. But yeah, that was a big, clean hit. And then even though, what was his name? Crevier hit Ghoulie when he was down, because he fell down under his weight when he got dropped by Goulie's first punch. Ghoulie acquitted himself well, and then his next punch opened up his cheek. Man, do not fight Caden Gooley. I don't think it's a very good decision. Like, as much as Arbor Jacki is, like, you know, the enforcer per se of the Montreal Canadiens, like, Caden Gooley is not someone to be messed with. Josh Anderson is not somebody to be messed with. Like, even like Mike Matheson throws down. Like, that guy's jacked. Like, there's some heavy hitters on the Canadiens, even though they're known as like a small team. This team's not weak. Moose says, welcome, Moose. I hear Veleno is incredibly jacked and absolutely shredded cabbage. I say put him in. Oh, God. I've credited the game winner to Gooley. Slav didn't get it. Really? I thought he did. I totally thought he did. He mentioned that post-game. He said he went back to what's reliable and steady, and natural for him was just physicality. From Gooley? Yeah, that makes sense. He's got to be able to lay the body. Romelli, pisses you off to have a player have to fight after illegal hits? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't like it. There was nothing illegal about it. It was a good hit. Most of Gooley's are, you know, like he's a pretty damn good hitter. Along with being like a generally good player, like and a hard hitter, he is a generally good clean hitter. Frederick Goulet, nice to see they won that game. Last year, it's a game they would have lost. Yeah, I was thinking this felt like a 2021 kind of win where like you outplay a team barely that you should definitely outplay and then kind of sneak out a win in like a shootout, but instead they did it for real. And yeah, I think the difference with this one is it feels unsatisfying, even though I believe at the end of the day, the Canadiens will have like generally be seen as outplaying the Blackhawks in that game. Like, it feels like they didn't bring it anyway, because there's a very obvious big gap in where these two teams are in their development paths or like rebuild paths. Like, the Canadiens are not that bad team anymore. Like, this team has clearly taken a step where like the expectations are being raised for a reason. Yeah, Gooley said he didn't feel good about the first two games. That makes sense. Like, that's one of the things that encourages me about this team is that the players are pretty forthcoming and honest about things. And it seems like they actually have invested in like taking care of these players and like keeping their confidence high, because they can admit when things aren't going well and learn from it. You know, like they've seen players come back from, you know, incredibly horrible streaks, like the whole Josh Anderson saga. Like, I feel like the Josh Anderson redemption arc, the next version of that is going to be Mike Matheson, because this is a guy that for very good reason is not universally loved by the Montreal Canadiens fan base, right? Like, Magic Mike as Ian Boisvert, great fan of Game Over Network and amazing co-host of Locked On Canadiens, our friends. He is all about the Magic Mike. And, you know, a good Mike or bad Mike night, sometimes you get a bit of both in the same game. And we haven't seen bad Mike Matheson really in this season so far. I know it's only 3 games, but my theory, now that I see what Marty St. Louis has put together on defense, is if this like setup stays the same, we're going to see a Mike Matheson that we have not really seen before. And that's a guy who actually has like the structural support behind him on defense and beside him with Noah Dobson to play within himself instead of pushing himself to an extreme degree to try to like be the man and be something like offensively that he's not capable of doing comfortably while keeping his game, you know, like together. He has to take too many risks. Now he has extra coverage and he doesn't have to be the man. I think we're going to see an incredible season from Mike Matheson, who also, by the way, happens to be in a contract year, which, not to be cynical, is always a factor. Now, personally, I think he is pretty damn underpaid based on what he's done in Montreal the last several years. So I hope he makes bank, but just the age and financial opportunity for Mike Matheson would suggest it will not happen in Montreal. Canadians have solidly progressed to mid now. Yeah, I think they're mid to could be very good. Like, that's the scary thing about these Canadians is the changes that they made in the offseason. Like, if Kirby Dach is the Kirby Dach of today, like this game, that's a game changer compared to what we saw last year. Like, remember that the team last year did not have a second line. They had a first line and two very good third lines. And one line of mishmash things together, and maybe you can get a couple goals here and there, but mostly you're getting dummied. You know, they had some good defensive players and Lane Hudson emerging as a star immediately. A big stroke of luck. This year they add Demidov and Dobson, you know, and Bolduc. Like, Oliver Kapanen takes a step and jumps right in. Like, there's an embarrassment of riches here that can potentially elevate to more than mid very quickly if things hit at a very, very lucky rate. Yeah, Romelli, I agree. Noah Dobson has been very, very good so far. Like, very, very good. I've been very impressed with him. It's my two sons pairing. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Like, both with Matheson and Dobson, like, they work really well together. They work well off each other. The only things that have gone wrong for them have been like broken sticks. And, you know, you can't control that. Maybe, I mean, the amount of broken sticks we've seen in the first 3 games, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe there's like a graphite problem. It's like Batman Begins when they get the first cowl and it's all shattered. Rod Langway says, Matheson's game will age well. He's in great shape and finding a role that suits his skill set. Yeah, I think the crazy thing about Mike Matheson is, like, usually players that rely on their speed can age poorly because that is one of the things that you can't maintain as well. But I don't think Mike Matheson, as good of a skater as he is, relies on his speed per se. I think his like fundamentals in skating and maneuverability and ability to keep speed are like the big factors in what allow him to get up to that top max speed, like, and his ridiculous cardio, because that man is a beast, an absolute beast. So he's a guy that, yeah, he might age extremely well. Like, whoever signs him to a big contract, if they don't expect him to be the number 1 defenseman, I don't think they're going to be upset. Like, I could see him fitting on a team like the Edmonton Oilers extraordinarily well. Like, I thought last year that they might approach the Canadiens. Maybe they did, and the Canadiens decided that they needed to keep Matheson for their own playoff run. But that would be a fit, I think. Romelli says their execution has been pretty awful so far, and yet they've won 2 out of 3. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can see the outline of what they could be. And I think that last shift tonight, like, the top line has been pretty damn good. And that's despite the execution on the actual shots not being that good. Although I think Slav has been pretty darn good. He's been robbed quite a few times. Caulfield too. But I think Suzuki's been a little bit off on the shooting. Although he's already got like four points in 3 games. Or did he get a point on the last goal? Does anybody know? Has he got 5 points in 3 games or 4? Because if we're going to say Suzuki's starting slow and he's got 5 points in 3 games, we've got to check ourselves a little bit, right? Rod Langway fan club says, how much would you offer Mike Matheson? I think there's a fair deal, and then there's unrestricted free agent. What should a player be demanding deal? Like, I think Mike Matheson is a like $7 to $7.5 million a year number 3 defenseman on a like Stanley Cup contending team. That's what I think Mike Matheson's ideal role is. And, you know, that could be here, but I don't know if that will happen in Montreal just because there's so many big defensive prospects in this city, like in this market. So there's a lot of competition going forward, including from a lottery pick in David Reinbacher. So There's competition coming behind. Matheson is so smooth. Yeah, he is unbelievably smooth. Like, if I skated like Matheson, I would never get off the ice. Rod Long, no, I answered that question. Romelli says he got a point in the last goal, I think. So, yeah. 5 points, 3 games. Suzuki, he's off. Only 5 points in 3 games. What's that pacing for? Like 120 points, something like that? Ridiculous. How are you feeling about Cole Caulfield so far? I think he's looked really good. I think one thing that has stood out to me for Cole Caulfield is over the last 3 seasons, including this one, I guess. So 2 seasons in 3 games. Great sample size. The evolution in his defensive game and defensive effort is really astonishing, especially when you put it into context of the role that he's playing on this team. Like, always remember that the Nick Suzuki line is the hard match defensive line also. It's not just the top line. They're also the line that they roll out to shut down the other team's top line when the going gets tough, right? So Caulfield's playing those tough minutes as well as the tough minutes to try to score. So he's got a dual job that is difficult to do, and that's why elite players play on that first line. And that first line, I think, is more than the sum of their parts as well. It's very damn impressive, but Caulfield personally, his evolution on defense from legitimately barely cared when he broke into the league to, was always going to cheat a little bit offensively because it creates so much opportunity for him, to now often first guy back on the back check, the guy who goes deepest on the back check. Like, he's always in passing lanes, picking off pucks, which is something that he always did in the offensive zone. He has that skill of being that like little shark in the water, smelling blood and capturing somebody who is going to make a mistake, pressuring them a little bit too much, and he picks off the pass. Him and Suzuki do it so well. He now does that in the defensive zone too, which is something that, offensive players should do. It just, you're not in a position to break out as much selfishly, but you're turning the puck over more often, and eventually you're going to actually generate more offense. But it's hard to get that mental math to work when you're not scoring. And the fact that Caulfield bought in on that mentality, even when he wasn't scoring that first year back from the injury, it's nuts to me. The mental maturity to do it. It's like, as a father myself, I'm like, I bet his parents are proud. It's that kind of stuff. And I love that kind of buy-in from your star players. Trinket says Caulfield much more physical. Yes. Oh my gosh. Last year in the playoffs, he was crazy. He's just this little guy and he's a little wrecking ball. Romelli, good forecheck by Caulfield. Yep, absolutely. Jean-Paul Kenville, the refs. Yeah, I think the refs were in a position tonight where if the Canadiens got away with anything, the Chicago bench probably just goes nuclear. So they have to, pretend that it's fair. But the Canadiens got away with a few too. So you got to just kind of take it. I think you were always going to get some makeup calls in the third period. And the Canadiens were at fault for putting themselves in that position because with 10 power plays, yes, I think on aggregate, a 20% power play is like an average NHL power play. That's fine. But in one game, it feels terrible to have an average power play, especially when you should wear down those penalty killers over the course of it and figure something out and figure out how to score. And I think Kay said on Blue Sky during the game that the 2 goals they did get felt very lucky, not like they accomplished something that they were trying to do necessarily. So yeah, it felt bad. They should have been in a better position going into the third period. So hard to really complain about the refs from the Canadiens' perspective. If you're a Canucks fan, a Blackhawks fan, yeah, you can complain. But I don't know. Your team kind of earned them. They just played dumb. The Xhekaj penalty was 100% game management, Trinka. I mean, I didn't think he crossed that much of a line, considering what was going on. the Blackhawks were like the aggressors in the physicality stuff. So you get what you pay for. Oh no, Rod Langway. We're not gonna promote AI replacing refs. What they need is more off ice officials that are able to communicate in live correspondence with on ice officials. That's what they need, and they need a commitment from the NHL to actually call the damn rules, because that's the biggest impediment. As much as it's very tempting to like blame the refs, and like the way the refs are trained and conditioned to call the game is a problem. But it's not like an individual ref problem. Like some of them are bad, obviously, but it's not like the refs are just all terrible. They're obviously the most skilled at their profession in the entire world. Like that's why they're in the NHL. There just needs to be more of them. There needs to be more training. The game is so fast now, and the NHL's commitment to actually calling the rule book is so flimsy and conditional that it just can't be put on the refs themselves. Like it's a directive thing. It has to come from the top down. They have to be told how to call the game. That's how the NHL works. That's how leagues work. Yeah, 2 minutes for hugging on Jack-Eye. It's been a weird start to the season for calls, but it always is. Just calling the rules would be good. Yeah, I agree. I think also part of the problem is like the rule book itself is written in several instances to be vague enough to allow like conditional interpretations of things, right? Like when you're talking about like head injuries, right? Or head hits, it's easy to say that like, oh, you have to review every single hit, whatever, in terms of like what to call a suspension on. But when you're talking about a hit to the head in play during a game, just call it like they do in the IIHF. It's so simple. If somebody gets hit in the head, call it. It doesn't matter if it was intentional. It doesn't matter if it was like a shoulder to the chest and chin. If you hit the head, it's a bad hit. Get that through the players' heads so that they don't have to wonder what they can do. Just make it easy for them to understand and say you cannot hit this way. The easiest thing that they could do for things like that is just to say you can't hit the other side shoulder, right? If you're going to hit somebody, you have to hit the incoming shoulder. You can't hit across body. What's across the body when you're skating? It's always going to be your chin. What's the odds of cutting under somebody's chin to hit their shoulder on the other side? It's not physically likely. But that's the problem with the NHL. They don't want to do the hard thing, which is just making it clear. They want to be able to have more control on it, and that's the issue. They don't trust the sport to be good on its own. I think that's the problem that I have with the NHL as a league. They don't trust hockey to sell itself, so they feel like they have to just have their hands on it all the time to crunch it into what they want it to be, and I think their vision is wrong. I think I'm going too far off topic, but yeah, Dre says this makes too much sense. Yeah. We're going NHL conspiracy theory night. It's the makeup calls that piss me off the most. Yeah. Yeah, I get you, Romeli. Chicago got 10 penalties, but that's because they played like bums. So why do you feel the need to make up calls to even things up? Yeah, it is silly, but that's what the NHL wants to do with its product, right? Because they're more concerned with the perception of something being unfair than they are with the reality of calling things properly, right? Like sometimes it's unfair because one team plays super dumb. And yeah, sometimes when you're a fan, it's hard to accept that because you're a fan and you don't want your team to play dumb. But sometimes shit happens, man. You got to accept it. Ken Dryden said it years ago. We made the sticks to the head, or sticks to the head illegal. Elbows too. I agree. Ken Dryden was a visionary, man. If the playoffs started today, Montreal would play Boston in the first round. I say do it. You know what? They would kick the shit out of the Boston Bruins. I think that would be extraordinarily fun, but it won't happen. Sammy Hag says, you're right. As soon as hooking became clear with stick to hands, players adjusted. Yep. When they got caught now for hooking, they don't even argue, really. Like, if somebody gets sticks in hands, they get annoyed at themselves or whatever, but it's one of the ones that players don't really argue on. They argue on slashes when they break a player's stick because they feel like that's a stupid, like, decision-making judgment for that penalty, but you don't see them arguing that much for slashing or for hooking. If anything, it's like the gloves up thing, but it's funny. Yeah, when it becomes clear, the players do understand. Stick in the skates is a penalty. Vigorous hug in the scrum is not. Yeah, they need to erase the ref's short-term memory during every commercial break. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of game management, right? Like, Tim Peel, POS that he is, the reason he got fired by the NHL was, or not fired, I guess, retired by the NHL was not that he was a bad ref, which he was, but it was because he said the quiet part out loud. The game management is a thing. And the NHL didn't like that. But he was telling the truth for once. So, can't fault him for that one. All right, what else did I got here? Oh, yeah. Can we talk Zach Bolduc? Like, what the heck? This guy. Is that going to be the most hilarious trade in, like, the last decade? Like, it's going to be a contender, isn't it? I know we talked about that with Kay last game, but he just keeps impressing. He's a glue guy already. And that's incredible. I hope he just keeps on killing it. He won't score a goal every game, but somebody on Insta asked him for 80. He's saying bet so far. Oh, I wanted to talk about the Mike Matheson penalty kill without the stick. That was insane. Like, would he have been better off using his foot speed to just go get a stick right away? Probably, yeah. But it was impressive as hell. Would it have been better once Caden Gooley got out of the penalty box if he just skated to the bench because he was dead tired and he didn't have a stick and somebody else could just come on that was a forward and Gooley could have taken his position and that would have been a better situation? Yes. But was he absolutely kick-ass clinical without a stick defensively for like a minute and a half? Yeah, he was. So, holy crap, Mike Matheson. That was one hell of a shift that I think I will never forget. Romelli says Bolduc 82-goal season incoming. I agree. I say he does it, says Frederick Goulet. Rod Langway. Meanwhile, Mayu was called out by Blues media after his first game. Oh, shit. Rod Langway said, fan club says, loved Mayu's effort, or Matheson's effort, sorry, but with the bench near the defensive zone, you need to get off or retrieve a new stick. I agree. In principle and in practice, I fully think that that's what you should do and what he should have done, but he kicked ass anyway. It blew my mind in multiple ways. I loved it. That shift felt like the one against the Islanders last year where they spent like 5 minutes in their own zone, but Matheson actually looked like he wanted to make it stop. Yeah. Oh, God. Sammy Hague, the nice thing I find about Bolduc is that it feels like he can play with anyone. His style complements most of the other styles. Yeah, that's the thing that I was excited to see if it held, because it's one of the things that I heard coming out of St. Louis was that he was that guy who just fit in multiple situations and always made lines work. And I was like, shit, did the Canadiens just acquire a slightly larger Brendan Gallagher with a really heavy wrist shot? And man, so far so good. Now he is playing with Brendan Gallagher, which helps everyone, as we've established many times. But that line with Kirby Dach, I am liking their evolution over the first 3 games. Like, it's too early to tell with almost all of this stuff outside of the known quantities, like the first line. Like, I'm very comfortable talking about that first line game to game and evaluating where I think they are and where I think they'll be, because I've seen what they look like for a long enough time. They've been so consistent together that you can see where they're going. And now that we've seen what Slavkovsky has been so far, like, that's a friggin' good line. Like, that is a scary, scary line. What they did to Chicago in that last minute of the game to take the game winner, that was scary. Like, they could not be stopped. No matter how much Chicago tried to clear that puck, it was not getting out. It was a really incredible shift. Even with a bouncing puck too, like, it was really, really impressive. Rod Lewin says, I know sticks aren't made of wood anymore, but I suspect someone in Toronto may have set a bunch of termites loose in the Habs locker room before game 1. Man, that game winner was hard to see. It was hard to absorb. Hockey is an unfair sport sometimes, and that was a game that I thought the Canadiens fully deserved to win. But as unlucky as they got against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think they got pretty fortunate against the Detroit Red Wings. So you take some and you lose some. And this team is now good enough for that to be acceptable at times, because they're going to win a lot more than they lose, in my opinion. Goulet, Carrier, and Jacques, I probably have much fewer minutes than Matheson, Dobson, and Hudson with that many power plays. Oh, yeah, I would expect. I don't know if it held because the Canadiens didn't get any third period power plays, but after 40 minutes, the Suzuki line had more power play ice time than even strength ice time. Like, by 2 minutes, which is insane. Like, with that much ice time for that line, objectively, they should have had a couple more goals tonight. Like, I thought they played very well overall, that top line specifically. But objectively, with that much ice time, they probably should have had a couple more goals. Kapanen, 10 minutes. I mean, the fact that Kapanen managed to get 10 minutes out of tonight tells you how much they like Kapanen. Like, they're trying to get him out there, right? The Toronto game was their best one so far. 4 out of 6 points seems fair. Yeah, I agree. Rod Lightwing Fan Club, I totally agree. That is very astute. Tonight wasn't a very good game for Patrick Laine. Romele, we'll talk about it. Patrick Laine. Yeah. I was not impressed with his decision making in this one. I feel like with as much time on the power play as he was able to get, this should have been a game where we saw a bit more from Patrick Laine, and I was not seeing it. I thought he was pretty damn good in preseason, but so far during the regular season, it's kind of been not the best. Now, I accept he's not in the best situation, but I want to see a little bit more from Patrick Laine. I think he needs to bring it a little bit more. It was Laine's worst game so far, Romele. Yeah, I agree. Really bad passing, specifically. Really soft. 648 for Xhekaj. You know, it's funny. In those 648, I thought he was visible, which is good. You know, I thought he was out there at the right times. You know, tough to get out there with that much power play time, though. Like, I would assume the defenseman ice time was very low in general tonight, other than Hudson and Dobson. Ian Beauvoir, president of the Laine fan club here. I don't know what you do with this guy. Can't play him in the top 6. Pointless on the 4th line. I'm not sure how this shakes out. You know, it's one of those things where right now it's not really costing them anything because that fourth line has kind of been not bleeding anyway, which is good so far, I guess. Maybe it's just luck so far, but maybe it's something that becomes a factor when injuries hit, and that's when Laine takes off, and that's when the value of Patrik Laine hits, and you have to just kind of take it for the advantage, or like see it from the perspective of what was sacrificed to bring Patrik Laine in, instead of looking at like how much money Patrik Laine is making, because his role in the team and like the cost to acquire him were very, very low. So like he's a very low cost in terms of like investment, irrespective of salary, to high benefit if he is necessary player. So it's kind of like you can't expect Laine to suddenly become a great 5-on-5 player, and he's just not a high enough priority for the coaching staff to get functioning at 5-on-5 to sacrifice other functioning lines at 5-on-5. So the ball has to be in his court, unfortunately, for Patrik Laine, I guess. But I mean, you got to do it. You got to dig in, man. You got to find a way. He has the ability to be very physical, so maybe he needs to lean into that a little bit out there with Josh Anderson. So be a little bit rambunctious, Patrick. A great performance of the team in faceoffs tonight. Yeah, it seemed that way. They also got a second-round pick with him. Yeah, I agree, Sammy Haig. The Laine trade is still a win. We got, agreed. Romelli, 62% almost on faceoffs. Pretty good. Frederick Goulet says, talking of Arbor, have your guys seen Mama Jacque's pic today? She put out a breakfast she cooked for Florian Arbor all summer. Oh my God. I did not see that. Did it look delicious? I bet you it was very large. Those two growing boys. All right, folks, did you have any questions? Because we're kind of doing the whole game as overtime. But I'm probably going to pack it in shortly here because it is quite late and I am a tired old man. So if you got any questions, hit me in the stream chat. And then after that, I will shut her down. Oh, right, Montembeau. Sorry, Romelli. Yes, absolutely. Okay. I didn't think that he was bad tonight. I thought that he wasn't super amazing or anything in the first period or second period, but he also wasn't challenged that much. But I think he held the Canadiens in it in the third in a lot of ways. Who's the first call up from Laval? Ooh. I mean, it depends on the position. I mean, highest in the pecking order might be Owen Beck, depending. Or on defense, it seemed like Engstrom was the guy that lasted the longest in training camp. Evans, 65% in the faceoffs. Yeah, he was pretty good tonight, clutch. Do you think Newhook has a long-term role in the team, Sammy Haig? That's something that I've always been kind of skeptical on, just because I'm not sure where Newhook is at his best. Like, just based on his profile and production rate, I would say like he would be in his best slot on the wing on the third line, but like a third line scoring line, not a third line checking line. So you have to be built in that specific way. And I think the Canadiens are trying to build themselves as like basically 4 scoring lines. Like they might have a more physical scoring line, like the fourth line. But last year, that like Jake Evans line that was like the fourth line, technically, like before Kirby Dach was injured, let's say from there, like technically you would say that the Kirby Dach line was the second line because Patrik Laine was there too. So that just makes like media sense, right? But objectively, they were the fourth line in terms of deployment. But The Evans line played like a scoring line. Like, they didn't give up offensive opportunities. They tried to produce quite a lot. They weren't necessarily a like tight checking, dump the puck in line. Like, I don't think Marty St. Louis wants to have any line that plays that way. There might be a more forecheck and cycle line to produce their offense than like off the rush capability, like the Suzuki Caulfield line. But all of his lines seem to be geared towards producing, which I think is really exciting for the future of this team. So Newhook could have a role on this team in a lot of places because he could be on the fourth line. And his play on the PK so far this season, to me, has given him a utility that he did not have last year. I think he's been objectively very good on the penalty kill and good at intercepting pucks. I've liked what I've seen from him and Kapanen in particular, their chemistry together on the penalty kill. So I think that Newhook is giving himself a better argument than I've seen before, especially to start a season. Usually he starts pretty slow, I found. Although I think his first year here, he started pretty hot and then got injured, right? So I could be wrong. Let's see here. Steven LaRue says, how many games does Monty play this month? How many games are there this month? Ramelli says he was good overall, but his positioning was terrible on goal one. Yeah, I mean, that when Monty is not at his best, right, it's about puck tracking, I find. And when he gets off of his angles, it's because he's lost sight of the puck and he's like a second behind or a half second behind. Rod Lovingway Fan Club says, does Veleno get in there soon? I could see him coming in for Line for the season opener. He's a local kid and looked solid in the preseason. I don't know if they'll do that for the season opener because I think that's a tough one to do for Line to scratch him there. I think they're going to give Line a little bit more runway than that just because my read on Marty St. Louis' coaching style so far is that he gives veterans a pretty good amount of rope to try to dig themselves out of a hole. He gave Josh Anderson a very, very long time. He gave Christian Dvorak a long time. He gave, Evgeny Dadonov a long time. He gives the benefit of the doubt to players to try to dig themselves out. He gives them ice time. So I think he will be unlikely to scratch Line that quick unless he's hurt or maybe he's really upset about this game. Who knows? But that's my read from St. Louis so far. But maybe his relationship with Line is long enough now that he knows that sitting him won't hurt his feelings. So maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. Sometimes it comes down to the personal relationship, right? And I think what I've seen from this team so far is they appear to be a little bit better at managing those relationships than people give them credit for or understand because the last regime was very poor at that. For example, it's been years now that there's been a narrative both in Montreal media and in the fan base that the organization treats Arbor Xhekaj really unfairly and that his relationship with Marty St. Louis is terrible and Marty St. Louis hates Arbor Xhekaj and doesn't want to play him. And yet Arbor Xhekaj keeps evolving as a player under this management group and seems to be generally pretty happy. And before this season, talked about his relationship with Marty St. Louis and what is expected of him. And it's basically exactly what I thought when he was sent to the AHL a couple of years ago, was they believe he can be more than just the tough guy. So their expectations of him raised the bar. They wanted to see what they could get out of him offensively when they sent him down to the AHL. They wanted to see if he could be more than a seventh defenseman tough guy that spots in when you need him, to be a regular guy, a guy to build your third pairing around. And they've been careful in his deployment to, get him to get a little bit less of that red mist rage that he had early in his career that was a little bit more out of control and start to be a little bit more discerning into when he needs to be extremely physical or beat a guy up. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. We've seen him evolve in that way. And I think there's a very good relationship there. I think they understand each other very well. Now, that doesn't mean contract time is not going to be stressful. Like that always is between players and management, because they have very opposing goals there, right? One wants salary up, one wants salary down. So that'll always be contentious. But I think on a day-to-day basis, this team has done a very good job managing personalities and understanding what they need to do to motivate them in the right way and get the most out of them. I'm very impressed overall in what this coaching staff and management team, and I guess like skills coaching staff, skills development team has been able to do in evolving like developed players. We always hear the idea that the NHL is not a development league. I think if you believe that, you're a sucker, because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. That's the way the game is. That's the way professional sports is. You've got to find a way to continue evolving. And that's one thing that Marty St. Louis has been consistent about in his like coaching philosophy. And I think why he was able to be such a good player in the NHL for so long, despite the size disadvantages and all that. I love the chip on the shoulder as a fellow short guy. Died on Sunday says, I thought Lane yet again looked off tonight. A couple bad giveaways and hasn't been creating scoring chances and needs to shoot more. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it looks off because the puck's not rolling the right way. It could just be that. I remember at the beginning of last year when, I don't know if it was Ian or if it was Scott Matla that were tracking all the like perfect Lane Hudson assists on perfect easy tap-in goals that never even got there because the Canadiens just couldn't put the puck in the net. Sometimes just things don't break for you right early on. So it's tough to say after 3 games. But Hudson looks okay to me. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more decisive in the offensive zone. A little bit less generous, maybe. But maybe. I don't know. He doesn't look too bad. Hudson had a few dangerous moments. He's going to be fine. Yeah, that's the thing about him. Like, even if he is a little bit off, I'm fully confident in his ability to rein it in and figure it out, because look what he was able to accomplish last year. Like, that's not a flash in the pan thing, evolving over the course of the season like that and then being an absolute beast in the playoffs. Like, he was unbelievable in the playoffs. It was ridiculous. Despite the insane reffing and line crossing that was allowed physically against Lane Hudson, he was just a menace, an absolute menace. Hudson is too much in his head. I don't think so. I think that's just something that's being pushed on TV. I think the contract stuff is much ado about nothing. I think that we're so used to talking about Mitch Marner that we don't realize that a protective father doesn't necessarily mean an abusive one. And even though Lane Hudson's father seems to be very loud on social media and says stuff like he's going to defect to Canada, honestly, I see that as an absolute win. I hope the United States keeps on being mean to the Hudson family and being dumb and not inviting Lane to their hockey camps so he can defect to Canada. That's great. I don't think the contract stuff's too much to worry about. The cap's going up. He'll get a little bit more money than you think, but that's okay. They're going to lock him up long term. All right, folks, I got to end it there. I'm exhausted. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I always love these streams, and we'll see you again when the Habs take on, I don't even remember the next game. I'm too tired. All right. I'm going to close this out.